The salvage ship drifted through the darkness of space, its metal hull gleaming under the distant light of a massive gas giant. Inside the cramped cockpit, Hana stared at the ancient research station floating ahead. The station looked dead. Its lights were dark and pieces of metal floated around it like forgotten trash. "This place gives me a bad feeling," Taiyang said from the pilot seat. He pressed buttons on the control panel, reading the station's status. "The power is almost gone. Life support is failing. Whatever happened here, it happened fast." Hana leaned forward, her dark eyes studying the station. She had seen many abandoned places in her work as a xenobiologist, but something about this one felt different. Wrong. The contract said the Velkari Empire evacuated 6 months ago. They hired us to collect any valuable equipment left behind. "The Velkari don't leave valuable things behind," Taiyang muttered. "They count every credit, every piece of technology. If they left this place, there's a reason." The docking process was smooth. The station's automated system still worked enough to guide their small ship into the bay. When the airlock opened, Hana and Taiyang stepped into darkness. Their helmet lights cut through the shadows, revealing corridors filled with floating papers and broken equipment. "Stay close," Taiyang said, checking his scanner. "The air is breathable, but just barely. We have maybe 12 hours before this whole place loses atmosphere completely." They walked through the empty corridors. Hana's boots made soft sounds against the metal floor. Everything was silent except for the creaking of the station's structure. She had studied the station's history during the trip. It was a xenobiology research facility, owned by the Velkari Empire. They studied dangerous alien species here, trying to turn them into weapons or sell them to the highest bidder. "The Velkari are cruel," Hana said quietly. "They treat living creatures like products on a shelf." "That's why they're rich," Taiyang replied. "No conscience means no hesitation." They passed through the main laboratory. Broken glass covered the floor. Empty cages lined the walls, their doors hanging open. Whatever animals had been kept here were long gone. Hana felt a chill run down her spine. She touched one of the cages, seeing scratches on the inside of the door. Deep scratches made by something desperate to escape. "They left in a hurry," she whispered. A sound echoed through the corridor ahead. Both of them froze. It was faint but unmistakable. A low growl followed by a weak whimper. "Did you hear that?" Hana asked. Taiyang nodded slowly. "It came from the lower level. Containment Bay 7, according to the map. Something is still alive down there, Hana. We should leave. Whatever it is, the Velkari left it for a reason. These weren't pets. They were weapons, but Hana was already moving toward the stairs. She couldn't explain why, but she had to see. She had to know what was making those sounds. Taiyang cursed under his breath and followed her. The lower level was darker and colder. Their breath formed clouds in the air. The sound grew louder as they approached a large reinforced door. The words Containment Bay 7, Class 9 Specimen, Raska were painted in red letters. "Class 9, Taiyang said nervously. "That's the highest danger rating. Hana, please. Let's just go." Hana placed her hand on the door panel. It flickered to life, showing a security camera feed of the room beyond. What she saw made her heart break. Inside the containment bay was a creature unlike anything she had ever seen. It looked like a leopard from Earth, but larger, more powerful. Its body was covered in spotted fur that shimmered even in the dim light. But the creature was dying. Its ribs showed through its skin. Its eyes were dull and hollow, and beneath its body, huddled together, were 3 tiny cubs. They were so thin that Hana could see every bone in their small bodies. The mother creature was lying on her side, too weak to stand. But her eyes were open, watching her cubs. One of the cubs tried to nurse, but the mother had no milk left to give. The cub whimpered, a heartbreaking sound that echoed through the speakers. "They left them to starve," Hana said, her voice shaking with anger. "The Velkari just left them here to die slowly." "The records say this was a breeding program," Taiyang said, reading from his data pad. "The Raska species. They're from a planet in the Outer Rim. Extremely intelligent, extremely dangerous. The Velkari were trying to breed them for sale as guard animals. When the program lost funding, they were ordered to euthanize all specimens, but they didn't. They left them to die instead. Cheaper than using euthanasia drugs." Hana felt rage burning in her chest. She had seen cruelty before, but this was different. This was calculated. Cold. The mother creature had fought to keep her cubs alive for 6 months with no food, no water, no hope. And now she was at the end of her strength. We have to help them, Hana said. Hana, no. Look at her. She's a Class 9 predator. Those claws could cut through our suits like paper. Those teeth could crush metal. If we open that door, she could kill us in seconds. Look at her eyes, Taeyang. Really look, he did. And he saw what Hana saw. The creature's eyes were intelligent. They were filled with pain, yes. With desperation, but also with something else, understanding. The creature knew she was dying. She knew her cubs were dying. And in her eyes was a plea for help that crossed all barriers of species and language. She's a mother, Hana whispered. Just like any mother. She's trying to save her children. One of the cubs stopped moving. Its breathing became shallow, then stopped completely. The mother creature made a sound that no words could describe. It was grief, pure and absolute. She nudged her dead cub with her nose, trying to wake it up. When it didn't move, she pulled it closer to her body and made that terrible sound again. Hana's eyes filled with tears. I won't let the others die too. I can't. If we do this, we break our contract. We could be arrested. The Velkari consider these creatures their property. I don't care about the contract. I don't care about the Velkari. Look at them, Taeyang. Would you walk away? Taeyang was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. No, I wouldn't. My mother would be ashamed of me if I did. Then help me. They searched the station's medical bay, moving quickly. Most of the supplies had been taken, but they found emergency rations designed for alien biology, nutrient paste, water purification tablets, and basic medical equipment. It wasn't much, but it was something. When they returned to Containment Bay 7, Hana took a deep breath and opened the door. The mother creature's head lifted slightly. Her eyes locked onto Hana. For a moment, nobody moved. Hana could see the creature calculating. Could she attack? Should she attack? These beings had come from the same species that abandoned her, the same species that let her cubs starve. But Hana moved slowly, speaking in Korean, her voice soft and gentle. I'm here to help. Please, let me help your babies. The creature watched as Hana knelt down several feet away. She placed the nutrient paste on the floor and slid it forward. The mother creature sniffed it, then looked back at Hana. Their eyes met. And something passed between them, an understanding that went deeper than words. The mother creature nudged her two remaining cubs toward the food. They were too weak to eat on their own, so Hana moved closer, slowly, carefully. The mother could have killed her then. One swipe of those massive paws. But she didn't. She watched as Hana fed her cubs one small bite at a time. Taeyang worked on rigging a water system into the bay. The mother creature drank deeply, desperately. Color began to return to her fur ever so slightly. Hours passed. The cubs took a little food. The mother stayed alive. And in that cold, dark station, abandoned by those who should have cared, a bond began to form between human and creature, a bond that would change everything. The first night on the station was the longest of Hana's life. She sat outside the containment bay, watching through the transparent wall as the mother creature held her two surviving cubs close. The third cub, the one who had died, lay wrapped in a clean cloth in the corner. Hana had done that. She couldn't just leave the small body there. Taeyang brought her a cup of hot coffee from their ship. You should rest. I'll watch them. I can't sleep, Hana said. Every time I close my eyes, I see that cub dying. We were so close. Just a few hours earlier and maybe... Don't do that to yourself. We saved two of them. That matters. The mother creature's eyes opened. Even in her weakened state, she never truly slept. She always watched, always protected. When she saw Hana looking at her, something changed in her expression. It was subtle, but Hana noticed. The creature's eyes were less afraid now, less suspicious. She knows we're trying to help, Hana said softly. Maybe. Or maybe she's just too weak to care anymore. No. She's smart. I can see it. The way she looks at us, the way she responds, she understands more than we think. Morning came, though it was hard to tell in the darkness of space. Hana and Taeyang worked to gather more supplies. They found protein supplements in an old storage room. They found medical equipment that could scan the creature's health. They found old research notes about the Raska species. Listen to this, Taeyang said, reading from a datapad. The Raska are from a planet called Veska. They're apex predators with intelligence levels matching some spacefaring species. They can solve complex problems, communicate with each other using a combination of sounds and body language, and form strong family bonds. One researcher wrote that separating a Raska mother from her cubs caused her to stop eating for 3 weeks. They feel everything we feel, Hana said quietly, and the Velkari treated them like objects. The notes say they're also extremely dangerous. Adult Raska can run at speeds up to 80 kilometers per hour. Their claws can cut through reinforced steel. They have bite force strong enough to crush bones. And they never forget those who hurt them. But they also never forget those who help them, right? Taeyang found that part in the notes. Actually, yes. It says here that Raska form loyalty bonds with individuals who show them kindness. One researcher managed to gain the trust of a male Raska over 6 months. The creature would protect him from other dangerous animals and even brought him food. See? They're not monsters. They're just animals trying to survive. The cubs showed improvement by the 2nd day. They could lift their heads now. They made small sounds, communicating with their mother. The mother creature was stronger too. She could stand, though she was still unsteady. When Hana entered the bay to bring food, the mother watched her carefully but didn't growl. "I'm going to give you names," Hana said, speaking to the creatures as she placed down the food. "The Velkari probably just called you by numbers, but you deserve real names. I'll call you Bael. It means star in my language. Because you shine even in this darkness." The mother creature Bael tilted her head at the sound. Her ears twitched. "And your cubs. This one with the lighter spots, I'll call her Dal. Moon. And this one with the darker fur, Hanul. Sky." Bael made a low sound, almost like a purr. It was the first positive sound Hana had heard from her. But as the 2nd day ended, their problems grew worse. Taeyang found Hana in the control room, his face serious. "The station's reactor is dying faster than we thought. We have maybe 30 hours before total system failure. After that, there's no life support, no heat, no air. Can we fix it? Not without parts we don't have. This station is old and the Velkari stripped everything valuable. What about our ship? Can we take them with us?" Taeyang shook his head. "Our ship is designed for 2 people and cargo. The containment bay is too big to fit through the cargo door. And even if we could get Bael and her cubs onto the ship, there's not enough space. The cubs maybe, but not Bael, she's too large. So we leave her behind? After everything? I don't know what else to do, Hana." A message came through on their communication system. It was their employer, a salvage company based on a human colony world. "This is Control. We've been monitoring your progress. You've been on station for 30 hours with minimal salvage reported. Is there a problem?" Taeyang looked at Hana. She knew they should lie. They should say everything was fine, finish the job, and leave. But she couldn't do it. "Control, we found living creatures on board. The Velkari left them to die. We're providing emergency care." There was a long pause. Then the controller's voice came back, harder now. "Your contract is for salvage only. Interference with Velkari property is not authorized. Extract immediately. These aren't property. They're living beings. The Velkari Empire has legal ownership of all biological specimens on that station. If you interfere, you violate galactic commerce law. Your company could lose its license. You could face criminal charges. Extract now." Hana looked at Taeyang. He looked back at her. They both knew what this meant. If they stayed, they would lose their jobs. They might lose everything. "Control, we need more time." "Negative. A Velkari patrol is scheduled to inspect the station in 48 hours. If you're still there, you'll be arrested. This is your final warning." The communication ended. Silence filled the control room. "We should go," Taeyang said quietly. "I don't want to, but Hana, this is bigger than us. The Velkari have lawyers, armies, political power. We're just 2 salvage workers. We can't fight them." Hana stood up and walked to the window. Below, she could see the containment bay. Bael was lying down, her cubs curled against her belly. Even from here, Hana could see how thin they still were. How fragile. "When I was young, my family was very poor," Hana said. "My mother got sick. The hospital said they couldn't treat her without payment up front. They made us wait in a hallway for 6 hours while my mother got worse and worse. I was only 8 years old and I watched my mother suffer because nobody would help without money first." Taeyang said nothing, letting her continue. "A doctor finally came. He wasn't supposed to be working that day, but he heard about us and came back to the hospital. He treated my mother for free. He said that helping people was more important than rules. My mother lived because one person chose to do what was right instead of what was easy. What happened to the doctor? He lost his job. The hospital fired him for breaking their payment policy. But he didn't regret it. He told me years later that some choices define who you are, and he couldn't be the kind of person who walks away from someone dying just because a rule says to. Hana turned to face Taeyang. I can't walk away. Not from Biel, not from Dal and Hanul. The Velkari left them to die and everyone else just forgot about them. If I leave now, I become just like the people who turned away from my mother. I become someone I don't want to be. Even if it costs you everything, especially then. That's when it matters most. Taeyang was quiet for a long time. Then he smiled just a little. My grandmother used to say that humans are strange creatures. Other species in the galaxy calculate cost and benefit before they act. But humans? We do foolish things for no logical reason. We help when it hurts us. We fight when we should run. We care when caring is dangerous. Is that a yes? That's a yes, we stay. We figure this out together. They spent the next hours working on a plan. They couldn't fix the station's reactor, but they could modify their ship. Taeyang was a genius with engineering. He started tearing apart the cargo bay, creating more space. It wouldn't be comfortable, but it might be enough. The problem was Biol herself. Even at her current weakened state, moving her would be dangerous. If she panicked, she could hurt herself or hurt them. And even if they could sedate her, the drugs might kill her. She was still too weak, her body too stressed. We need her to come willingly, Hana said. How do we explain to an alien predator that we need her to get on a spaceship? We trust her. Like she's trusting us. It was a crazy idea. Impossible, really. But as Hana looked at Biol through the containment bay window, she knew it was their only chance. The mother creature had let them feed her cubs. She had let them come close. She had shown intelligence and understanding beyond what anyone expected. Now they would ask her to show faith. Time was running out. The Velkari patrol was coming. The station was dying, and somewhere in the darkness of space, decisions were being made that would change lives forever. But in that moment, Hana felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt like she was doing something that mattered. Something real. She pressed her hand against the window. On the other side, Biol lifted her head and looked directly at Hana. Their eyes met, and in that look was a promise. A promise that neither would abandon the other. The third day began with hope and fear mixed together. Biol was stronger now. She could walk around the containment bay without stumbling. Her coat had regained some of its shine and her eyes were brighter. The cubs Dal and Hanul were playing. It was beautiful to watch them wrestle with each other, making small, growling sounds that were more cute than frightening. But the clock was ticking. 24 hours until the Velkari patrol arrived. 18 hours until the station's life support failed completely. Hana entered the containment bay slowly as she did every morning. She carried food and water. Biol watched her approach but didn't move aggressively. Over the past 2 days, they had developed a routine. Hana would place the food down, step back, and talk softly while Biol ate. Today was different. Today, Hana needed to go further. She placed the food down as usual. But instead of stepping back, she sat down on the floor, cross-legged, hands in her lap, making herself small and non-threatening. Biol's ears went back. Her muscles tensed. She was ready to attack if needed. It's okay, Hana said in Korean. I'm not going to hurt you. I need you to trust me, Biol. Really trust me. The cubs ran to the food and started eating. Biol kept her eyes on Hana, calculating. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Finally, Biol moved forward slowly. She walked toward Hana with careful steps. She was massive up close. Her shoulders were level with Hana's head even though Hana was sitting. Those claws, those teeth could end Hana's life in an instant. Biol stopped 3 feet away. She lowered her head and sniffed the air, taking in Hana's scent. Then she did something unexpected. She lay down, lowering herself to Hana's level. It was a gesture of peace, of equals meeting. Hana felt her heart racing but kept her voice calm. Thank you. Thank you for trusting me. Biol made a low rumbling sound. It wasn't a growl. It was something else. Something like a cat's purr but deeper, more resonant. Hana slowly, very slowly extended her hand, palm up, non-threatening. She let Biol see it, see that it was empty of weapons or tricks. Biol sniffed Hana's hand. Her nose was warm and slightly wet. Then in a moment that Hana would remember forever, Biol pressed her head against Hana's palm. Just for a second. Just enough to say, I understand. I trust you too. Outside the containment bay, Taeyang watched through the window. His hands were shaking. If something went wrong, he couldn't help Hana in time. But nothing went wrong. Instead, he watched as human and alien predators sat together in peaceful silence. When Hana finally left the bay, Taeyang hugged her tightly. "That was either the bravest or the most foolish thing I've ever seen." "Maybe both," Hana said, smiling. But her smile faded quickly. "Now comes the hard part. We need to get her onto the ship." Taeyang had been working all night. The cargo bay was modified now, with padding on the walls and a larger opening. It wouldn't be comfortable, but it would fit Biol and her cubs. The problem was getting them there. The ship was docked on the upper level, 2 floors above the containment bay. "We'll have to walk them through the station," Taeyang said, through corridors upstairs. "If Biol panics, she won't. I'll lead her." "How?" "The same way I've been doing everything else." With trust, they had 16 hours left. Hana spent the next few hours with Biol, strengthening their bond. She brought toys made from torn cloth and old equipment. The cubs loved them, pouncing and playing. Biol watched her children play, and for the first time, she seemed almost relaxed. Hana noticed something interesting. Biol was teaching her cubs. When Dao played too roughly with Hanul, Biol would make a sharp sound, correcting her. When Hanul tried to eat too fast and started choking, Biol pushed the food away and waited until the cub calmed down. She was being a mother, teaching her children how to survive. "You're a good mother," Hana said softly. "Better than you were ever given credit for." Biol looked at her. Those intelligent eyes seemed to understand every word, even if she couldn't speak them back. As the hours passed, Hana began the next phase. She needed Biol to understand that they had to leave this place. She opened the containment bay door and left it open. Biol noticed immediately. She stood up, alert, watching the open door suspiciously. Hana stepped outside the bay and waited. She didn't call or make any sudden moves. She just waited. The cubs noticed the open door and started to wander toward it, curious. Biol made a sharp sound, calling them back. She didn't trust it yet. "It's okay," Hana said. "You can come out. This whole place is yours if you want it." It took an hour of Hana standing in the corridor, speaking softly, being patient. Finally, Biol's curiosity won. She stepped out of the containment bay for the first time in 6 months. Her paws touched the corridor floor. She sniffed the air, testing this new environment. The cubs followed, staying close to their mother. They looked so small next to Biol, like tiny copies of her. Dal was more adventurous, running a few feet ahead before Biol made a sound that brought her back. Hanel stayed pressed against her mother's side, nervous about the new space. Hana walked slowly down the corridor. She didn't look back. She trusted Biol to follow. And after a moment, she did. The mother creature followed Hana through the station, her cubs trailing behind her. It was a strange parade. Human, alien predator, and 2 cubs walking through an abandoned research facility in the middle of space. Taeyang watched from a distance, ready to help if needed. But his help wasn't necessary. Biol followed Hana calmly, trusting this human who had saved her children. They reached the stairs leading to the upper level. This was the test. Stairs were unnatural for Biol. The research note said that Raska lived on flat plains on their home planet. They didn't climb. Biol stopped at the bottom of the stairs, uncertain. Hana climbed up a few steps, then turned and sat down. "Come on, Biol, you can do this. Watch me." She climbed up another step, then another, moving slowly. The cubs tried to follow but couldn't manage the height of the steps. They cried out small, worried sounds. Biol's motherly instinct took over. She couldn't leave her cubs behind. She placed one large paw on the first step, testing it. It held her weight. She climbed to the second step, then the third. The cubs watched and learned. Dal managed to jump up one step, then another. Hanul struggled more, being smaller and weaker. Biol climbed back down, grabbed Hanul gently by the scruff of her neck and carried her up. Once Hanul was safe on the upper level, Biol went back for Dal, even though Dal had already climbed halfway up. "Family," Hana whispered to Taeyang. "She won't leave any of them behind. No matter what." They made it to the upper level. The docking bay was just ahead. Hana could see their ship through the window, small and cramped, but ready. Just a little further. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed throughout the station. A computer voice spoke in the Velkari language, then translated to Basic. "Warning. Reactor failure imminent. All personnel evacuate immediately. 15 minutes to catastrophic system failure." "No," Taeyang shouted. "It wasn't supposed to fail for another 12 hours. Biol roared. It was a sound of fear and anger combined. The lights, the noise, the alarm, it was too much. She gathered her cubs close, backing against a wall defensive. Her trust was breaking under the assault of sudden chaos. Biol, please. Hana moved toward her, but Biol growled a warning. The creature's eyes were wild. She was protecting her cubs from what she saw as danger. The station shook. Something exploded deep in the reactor level. The floor tilted slightly. More alarms joined the first, creating a symphony of panic. Hana, we have to go now. Taeyang grabbed her arm. Not without them. If we stay, we all die. Hana pulled away from Taeyang. She walked toward Biol, ignoring the warnings, ignoring the danger. She walked right up to the terrified creature and did something crazy. She placed both her hands on Biol's face, making the creature look at her. Biol, listen to me. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But I won't leave you. Do you understand? I won't leave you, but you have to trust me one more time, please. Biol's eyes were wide. She was breathing hard, but she focused on Hana's face, on those human eyes that had shown her only kindness. The station shook again. 10 minutes left. Come with me, Hana said. Come with me and I promise you'll be safe. I promise your cubs will be safe. Trust me. For a long moment, nothing happened. The world was ending around them. The station was dying. Time was running out. And in that moment, Biol made a choice. She chose to trust. Biol stood up. She nudged her cubs forward with her nose. And she followed Hana toward the docking bay. Toward the ship. Toward an uncertain future that was still better than certain death. They ran. All of them. Hana and Taeyang in front. Biol and her cubs behind. The corridors shook. Pieces of ceiling fell. Lights exploded above them. 8 minutes left. The ship's cargo bay was open. Taeyang ran ahead to start the engines. Hana led Biol to the opening. It was tight. Very tight. The mother creature would barely fit. Inside, Hana urged. Quickly! Biol hesitated. The ship was small, enclosed, nothing like the open spaces she preferred. But she saw Hana climbing inside. She saw Taeyang working frantically at the controls. And she saw her cubs looking at her, waiting for her to tell them what to do. Biol pushed her cubs into the cargo bay. Then she climbed in herself, squeezing through the opening. It was cramped, uncomfortable, but they were all inside. All together, seal it, Taeyang shouted. The ship tumbled through space, its engines screaming. Taeyang's hands flew across the controls, trying to stabilize their trajectory. Behind him in the cargo bay, he could hear Biol growling, scared and confused by the violent movement. Hold on, he shouted back to Hana. Hana had her arms wrapped around Dal and Hanel, keeping the cubs from being thrown around. Biol was pressed against the cargo bay wall, her claws dug into the metal floor to keep steady. Her eyes were wide with fear, but she didn't panic. She watched Hana, taking cues from the human. If Hana stayed calm, Biol would try to stay calm too. Finally, Taeyang got the ship under control. The spinning stopped. The engine settled into a steady hum. Through the small window, they could see the research station in the distance, breaking apart in silent explosions. Pieces of metal scattered like stars. Is everyone okay back there? Taeyang called. We're okay, Hana answered, though her voice shook. Biol is frightened, but she's okay. The cubs are okay. Good. Because we have a bigger problem. On his screen, a red warning light flashed. Long-range sensors showed a ship approaching fast. A big ship. Military class, the Velkari Patrol, Taeyang said. They weren't supposed to be here for another day, but they must have detected the station's explosion. They're coming to investigate. Hana's blood went cold.
Can we outrun them?
Our ship? Against a Velkari patrol cruiser? Not a chance. They're faster, better armed, and they have legal authority to stop us. We can't let them take Biol and her cubs back. I know. The communication system crackled to life. A cold mechanical voice spoke in the Velkari language, then switched to basic. Small craft. This is Velkari Patrol Ship Enforcement 7. Reduce speed and prepare for inspection. You are carrying stolen property of the Velkari Empire. Taeyang and Hana looked at each other. Stolen property? They called living beings property. Don't answer, Hana said. If we don't answer, they'll assume we're hostile. They could fire on us. If we do answer, they'll order us to hand over Biol. I won't do that. Biol sensed the tension. She made a low sound, almost like she was asking what was wrong. Hana reached through the cargo bay opening and touched the creature's nose, trying to offer comfort. Small craft. This is your final warning. Reduce speed immediately or we will open fire. Taeyang made a decision. He pushed the engines to full power. The ship jumped forward, accelerating toward the massive gas giant that the research station had been orbiting. It was a dangerous move. Gas giants had strong gravity fields and violent atmospheric storms. But it was their only chance. What are you doing? Hana asked. I'm buying us time. The gas giant has interference that will mess with their sensors. If I can get us into the upper atmosphere, they might lose us in the storms. Might? It's all I've got, Hana. Behind them, the Valkyrie patrol ship fired. Not a killing shot, just a warning blast across their bow. Energy weapons lit up space like lightning. Taeyang pushed the ship harder. They were small, more maneuverable than the big patrol ship. That was their only advantage. Small craft cease acceleration. This is your final warning. The next shot wasn't a warning. It slammed into their rear shields, making the whole ship shake. Alarms blared. Bial roared, and the cubs screamed in fear. Hana held them tighter, whispering words of comfort even though she was terrified herself. Shields at 60%, Taeyang reported. 2 more hits like that and we're done. The gas giant loomed ahead. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Swirling clouds of orange and red, storms bigger than entire planets, gravity that could crush them if they got too close. Taeyang aimed for the upper atmosphere, the thin layer where the gas wasn't too dense. Another shot hit them. Shields at 30%. The ship's hull groaned under the stress. Taeyang had to pull off the most dangerous flying of his life, and he had to do it now. Everyone hold on to something. This is going to be rough. The ship dove into the gas giant's atmosphere. Immediately everything changed. The smooth flight became violent shaking. The windows filled with orange clouds. Lightning arced around them. The hull temperature started climbing as friction heated the ship's exterior. Behind them, the Valkyrie patrol ship hesitated at the atmosphere's edge. They had better shields, better armor, but diving into a gas giant's atmosphere was still incredibly dangerous. The patrol captain had to make a choice: risk his ship and crew or let the small craft escape. Pride and duty won. The patrol ship followed them in. They're still coming, Taeyang said through gritted teeth. He was fighting the controls, keeping the ship from being torn apart by the atmospheric currents. Sweat dripped down his face. In the cargo bay, Biol had braced herself against the walls. She had her cubs tucked under her body, protecting them with her own mass. When a particularly violent shake threw Hana against the wall, Biol reached out with one large paw and pulled her back, keeping her steady. The creature was protecting Hana the same way she protected her young. They're firing again, Taeyang warned, but the atmosphere interfered with the energy weapons. The shots went wild, missing them by hundreds of meters. The patrol ship was having trouble too. It was too big, too heavy for this kind of flying. It struggled against the atmospheric pressure. Taeyang saw his chance. There was a massive storm system ahead, a hurricane of gas and lightning that stretched thousands of kilometers. It was suicide to fly into it, which meant the patrol ship would never expect him to do exactly that. Hold on to something solid. He dove into the storm. The world became chaos. Lightning struck their hull again and again. The shields flickered and failed. The ship spun like a leaf in a tornado. Alarm screamed. Systems overloaded. For a moment, Taeyang thought they were going to die. But his hands never left the controls. He rode the storm currents, using them instead of fighting them. The ship was small enough, light enough to be carried by the winds. He let it happen, steering just enough to avoid the worst of the lightning strikes. Behind them, the patrol ship wasn't so lucky. It was too big, too rigid. The storm battered it, and it couldn't maneuver. Taeyang watched on his sensors as the patrol ship struggled, then finally gave up. It pulled out of the atmosphere, damaged but intact. They weren't going to risk their lives for escaped research specimens, but the storm wasn't done with Taeyang and Hana. For 10 more minutes, they were thrown around like a toy. Systems failed one by one. Emergency power kicked in. The temperature inside the cargo bay dropped as heating failed. Hana held the cubs close, using her own body heat to keep them warm. Biol pressed against them all, adding her warmth too. Finally, they broke through the other side of the storm. Clear space. Beautiful, empty, peaceful space. The gas giant was behind them. The patrol ship was far behind, giving up the chase. They had escaped. Taeyang collapsed over the controls, exhausted. Is everyone alive back there? Hana checked. Dal and Hanul were scared but unhurt. Biol had a cut on her shoulder where she'd been thrown against something sharp. But it wasn't serious, and Hana herself was bruised all over, but okay. We're alive, she called back. We made it. Taeyang laughed. It was a tired, slightly hysterical laugh. We made it. We actually made it. We stole a Class 9 Predator from the Velkari Empire, got chased by a military patrol ship, dove into a gas giant's atmosphere, and survived. I don't think anyone is going to believe this story. Where do we go now? Hana asked. We can't go back to our old jobs. The Velkari will be looking for us. I know a place, Taeyang said. A human colony world called New Haven. It's on the edge of human space, far from Velkari territory. They're good people there. They take in refugees, people with nowhere else to go. Will they take in alien refugees too? I guess we'll find out. Hana looked at Biol. The mother creature was lying down now, exhausted from the terror and violence of the escape. But her cubs were safe. They were curled up against her belly, finally able to rest. Biol's eyes met Hana's, and in that look was profound trust. This human had promised to keep them safe. And despite everything, despite the danger and fear, that promise had been kept. Hana reached through the cargo bay opening and gently touched Biol's face. The creature made that deep purring sound again, a sound of contentment and gratitude. We did it, Biol, Hana whispered. You're free. Your babies are free. No more cages, no more starvation. I promise you I'll find you a home where you can live in peace. The ship turned toward New Haven. Behind them, the gas giant slowly disappeared into the distance. Ahead was uncertainty. The Velkari would be angry. There would be consequences. But in that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was that a mother and her children were alive. What mattered was that two humans had chosen compassion over convenience, had chosen to do what was right instead of what was easy. As they flew through the darkness of space, Biol kept one paw touching Hana's hand. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. It meant that despite different worlds, different species, different languages, some things were universal: trust, gratitude, family, love. And in the cold mathematics of the galaxy, where most species calculated value in credits and profit, humans had shown something different. They had shown that some things couldn't be calculated. Some things were worth more than money or convenience or safety. Some things were worth everything. The journey to New Haven would take 3 days. 3 days in space changed everything. By the time they reached New Haven, the cramped cargo bay had become something unexpected. It had become home, at least temporarily. Hana spent most of those 3 days with Biol and her cubs. She slept curled up against the mother creature's warm side, waking every few hours to feed the cubs or check on everyone's health. Biol seemed to understand that space travel was necessary. Even though she didn't like the confinement, she stayed calm, setting an example for Dal and Hanul. The cubs grew more playful each day. They wrestled with each other, pouncing on Hana's boots and making little growling sounds that were more adorable than scary. Dal was the brave one, always exploring every corner of the cargo bay. Hanul was gentler, preferring to stay close to her mother and Hana. Taeyang piloted the ship, keeping them on course. He also spent time researching New Haven, learning everything he could about their destination. What he found gave him hope. New Haven was founded by humans 30 years ago, he told Hana through the cargo bay opening. It started as a mining colony, but it grew into something more. People who didn't fit anywhere else came there. Refugees, outcasts, freethinkers. The colony has a reputation for welcoming anyone who needs help. Even alien predators? Hana asked. We'll find out soon enough. We arrive in 6 hours. Those 6 hours felt both too long and too short. Hana was nervous. Everything they had done, everything they had risked, would mean nothing if New Haven turned them away. Worse, if the colony decided to obey Velkari law and return Biol and her cubs, all of this would have been for nothing. When New Haven finally appeared on the view screen, Hana felt her heart skip. It was a beautiful planet, mostly green and blue with white clouds swirling in the atmosphere. It looked peaceful. Safe. New Haven Control, this is salvage ship Morningstar requesting permission to land, Taeyang said into the communication system. Morningstar, this is New Haven Control. We have you on our sensors. Please state your business and cargo manifest. Taeyang looked at Hana. This was the moment. The truth or a lie? He chose truth. Control were carrying 3 alien life forms, Raska species. We rescued them from an abandoned Velkari station. They were left to starve to death. We need sanctuary. There was a long silence. Hana held her breath. Then the controller's voice came back and it sounded amused. Did you say you rescued them? As in these are refugees? Yes, Control. They're refugees. Another pause. Then, well, that's a first. We've taken in refugees from 200 different species, but never non-sentient ones. Landing permission granted, Morningstar. Bay 12. And welcome to New Haven. This should be interesting. They landed smoothly. The landing bay was large and clean, with several other ships parked nearby. As the engines powered down, Hana saw people gathering outside, curious about the new arrivals. Word had spread fast. We should go out first, Taeyang said. Explain the situation before we bring Biol and the cubs out. Good idea. They opened the main hatch and stepped out into New Haven's air. It was warm and smelled like growing things. Hana took a deep breath, feeling the stress of the past days start to fade just a little. A woman approached them. She was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and kind eyes. She wore simple clothes and had the confident walk of someone in authority. I'm Mirai, the colony administrator, she said, extending her hand. You two look exhausted. We are, Hana admitted, shaking her hand. I'm Hana, this is Taeyang. Thank you for letting us land. Tell me about your passengers, Mirai said. I've never heard of Araska before. Hana explained everything. The abandoned station, finding Biol and her cubs starving, the decision to save them, the escape from the Valkyrie patrol. As she spoke, more colonists gathered around, listening. By the end, Hana had an audience of 50 people. So you risked everything for creatures you'd never met before? Mirai asked. Creatures that could have killed you? Yes, why? Hana thought about how to answer. Because they needed help. Because leaving them to die would have been wrong. Because I've been abandoned before and I know how it feels. Because Biol is a mother trying to protect her children. Because, she paused. Because it was the right thing to do. Mirai smiled. That's the most human answer I've ever heard. One of the colonists, a young man, raised his hand. I looked up the Raska species while you were landing. The Valkyrie were breeding them as weapons. They're classified as extremely dangerous. How do we know they won't hurt anyone here? It was a fair question. Before Hana could answer, a sound came from the ship. A deep rumbling growl. Biol had heard the crowd and was nervous about strangers being so close to her cubs. Let me show you, Hana said. She walked back into the ship. The crowd watched nervously. A minute later, she emerged again and gasps echoed through the landing bay. Walking beside her was Biol. The massive creature moved with deadly grace, her spotted coat gleaming under the bay lights. She was magnificent and terrifying at the same time, but she wasn't aggressive. She stayed close to Hana, watching the crowd carefully but not threatening. When Dal and Hanul tumbled out of the ship behind their mother, several people in the crowd said awe out loud. The cubs were still small and looked like oversized exotic house cats. This is Biol, Hana said, placing her hand on the creature's shoulder. She's intelligent, loyal, and protective. She trusted me to bring her somewhere safe. Now I'm asking you to give her that safety. Mirai approached slowly. May I? Hana looked at Biol. The creature's ears twitched, but she didn't growl. Slowly. Let her see your hand first. Mirai extended her hand, palm up. Biol sniffed it, taking in her scent. Then, just as she had done with Hana days ago, Biol pressed her head against Mirai's hand. The administrator laughed in delight. She's beautiful, Mirai said. And those cubs? They're precious. The crowd relaxed. People started asking questions. Could they pet her? What did she eat? How big would the cubs get? Hana answered as best she could, though she was still learning herself. That night, they had a colony meeting. The whole situation was explained to everyone. The Valkyrie had already sent messages demanding the return of their property. They threatened legal action, trade sanctions, even military response. So we have a choice, Mirai told the assembled colonists. We can return these creatures to the Valkyrie and avoid all problems. Or we can give them sanctuary and accept the consequences. I want everyone's voice heard. The debate lasted hours. Some people were scared of the consequences. Others were moved by Biol's story. But as the night went on, a pattern emerged. One by one, colonists stood up and said the same thing. We're human. We don't abandon those who need help. If we send them back, we're no better than the Valkyrie. This colony was founded by people who were unwanted elsewhere. How can we turn away others in the same situation? When the vote was called, it was unanimous. Biol and her cubs would stay. New Haven would become their home. The next days were busy. Taeyang and several engineers designed a habitat for Biol and her family. It was large, with trees and grass grown in biodomes, rocks for climbing, and an artificial stream for water. It reminded Biol of her homeworld, at least according to the research notes. Hana stayed with them, helping Biol adjust to the new environment. The mother creature was cautious at first, but as she realized this place was truly safe, she began to relax. The cubs loved their new home, running and playing in ways they never could in the cramped ship or the old research station. Word of the rescue spread beyond New Haven. Human news networks picked up the story. It became famous. Humans risk everything to save alien mother and cubs. The Velkari were furious. They demanded meetings, filed lawsuits, made threats. But something unexpected happened. Other humans across the galaxy heard the story and were inspired. They started looking at Velkari research stations with new eyes. They asked questions about how alien species were being treated. Protests started on several human worlds, demanding that all species be treated with dignity and rights. The Velkari found themselves facing something they hadn't expected: human moral outrage. And humans, it turned out, could be very loud when they decided something was wrong. Within months, the galactic community began discussing new laws about the treatment of intelligent alien species. Biol's story became the center of these debates. She was proof that creatures deemed non-sentient could feel, think, and form bonds. On New Haven, Biol thrived. She gained weight, her coat became glossy and beautiful. The cubs grew strong and healthy. Dal eventually became as big as her mother, bold and curious. Hanil was gentler but no less impressive, forming bonds with the colonist children who visited the habitat. Hana became the director of what they now called the Sanctuary. Other rescued alien creatures arrived, each with their own sad story of abandonment or abuse. But at the Sanctuary, they found safety and care. Biol never forgot what Hana had done for her. Every morning when Hana arrived at the habitat, Biol would greet her with that deep purring sound. She would press her head against Hana's chest, a gesture that said thank you more clearly than any words. One evening, 2 years after their arrival on New Haven, Hana sat in the habitat watching the sunset. Biol lay beside her with Dal and Hanul nearby. The cubs, now full grown, were teaching their own cubs how to hunt. Biol was a grandmother now,